This morning, because this is a great Veterans Day weekend, I am honored to introduce a gentleman who I've come to know over the last year. I actually got to know his wife first, but that's a different story because his wife has spoken to us before. But this gentleman has been behind the scenes, he's been active, he's been helping, he's taken on a committee position. But more importantly, after he was born in Ada, Oklahoma, somehow his family got him down here to Texas, and he served 40 years of service in the United States Army, and he retired as a 2-star general. It's my friend, Marshall Scantlin.
Can I move this? Let me get all this stuff. Not a problem. Pick up all of everything else. Thank you, Tom. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me according to the regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God. Those of us who have had the honor to speak these words and to take this oath belong to a special breed of men and women. For it's these men and women, past and present, are the ones we honor tomorrow during Veterans Day. It is an oath of service that bonds us with the veterans of our past wars, our present conflicts, and with those wars and conflicts that will surely come. Veterans of the United States military show a love for our country that is above reproach and valor that is unquestioned. Tomorrow we honor more than 20 million living American veterans who have taken this oath and have defended this great country of ours from the evils of tyranny and injustice. I'm sure some of you know this, but in 1918, and I always find this fascinating, on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, the world rejoiced and celebrated. The war to end all wars was over. The United States had signed an armistice with Germany ending in World War I. Armistice Day was first celebrated in 1919 when President Woodrow Wilson declared November the 11th a holiday. Unfortunately, as we know today, the signing of that armistice so long ago didn't end all wars. Wars and conflicts and skirmishes have continued to this very day. We hear it on TV, we hear it in the news all the time, we read it in the papers. But in 1954, after having been through both World War II and the Korean conflict, the 83rd U.S. Congress, at the urging, I might say, of veterans organizations, struck out the word armistice and stuck in the word veterans. And then on June 1, 1954, the United States designated November 11th as Veterans Day to honor all veterans. There's a story about a captain at Fort Belvoir that was heading towards a post-medical facility. Captain looked up and saw this elderly gentleman coming towards her, obviously a veteran. The old soldier was stooped over, walking very slowly, appeared to be about 80, 85 years old. However, the captain barely noticed this veteran because right behind the veteran was a full colonel. in '06. And he was coming up pretty fast behind this veteran. When it was time to render her salute to the colonel, the old veteran was just a few steps away from the captain. So the captain, seeing the colonel come up, renders a salute, says, "Good morning, sir." The veteran immediately came to life, totally transformed by the captain's greeting. Thinking the salute was for him, the veteran straightened up, returned her salute, and with vigor said, "Good morning, Captain." Meanwhile, the colonel was in the process of saluting when he realized what was going on. The colonel stopped in mid-salute, remained silent, exchanged glances with the captain as he was passing, unobserved by this old veteran. That was Veterans Day for that soldier. Veterans Day is a day when the nation pauses to salute all of those who have served and all those who will continue to serve in uniform to protect our country. Tomorrow is a day that honors those who have served on active duty, those who have served in the reserves, those who have served in the National Guard, those who have served during times of peace as well as times of war. This day honors those veterans who have served 2 years or who have served 30 years. This day honors the veterans who have served in all of our services: soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guard. Those who joined and those who were drafted, those who served on the front lines, the supply lines, or guarding the shore lines back home. And you've heard this before, freedom is not free. Our country has endured many wars and conflicts over the past 242 years. Think about that number. We owe the men and women in uniform our heartfelt thanks for keeping our great nation free. And I say this not because I'm in uniform, but because the history of the United States of America is about service and sacrifice. Think a minute about the sacrifices that our compatriots had to go through in the American Revolution. It had to be tough. It had to be awesome what they were doing. Throughout our nation's history, our military men and women have put it on the front line for our country. And the veterans here today, and we have them, are honored, as are the veterans in our neighborhood, the veterans across the United States that have sacrificed so much that all of us can enjoy the liberties that we too often take for granted. In times of peace, we really don't turn out big numbers for Veterans Day. Unfortunately, it takes a time of conflict to make us understand what service to our country is all about. It takes the loss of a loved one to make us understand how deeply serious this business of keeping our country free is. We can never afford to forget what our men and women from all the military services have done to keep America free. From the new recruits heading off to basic training to the business owner down the street who balances the civilian life with life in the reserve components. And all we have to do is remember a few weeks ago, the Utah mayor who was in the Utah National Guard who was killed in Afghanistan on his fourth deployment. His fourth deployment. Can you imagine? It sends cold chills. Veterans Day also helps everyone appreciate the enormous amount of service and sacrifice by our families. We need to remember that the service member is not the only one who is sacrificing. And some people would say, well, who sacrifices more than the service member? Think with me for a minute. By the time your son, your daughter, your mother, your father, your family member, your relatives, somebody had to deploy to areas in the world that you couldn't even pronounce and had no clue where it was, anyhow. Think a minute about Vietnam, when it started. We didn't know where it was, and some people still have a problem pronouncing it. Military conflict is a time when all military families must face an even greater uncertain future with all the worries and concerns that must be endured because a family member has gone into a combat zone. You better believe that families of service members sacrifice, in a true sense of the word, they become the veterans left behind. Even though I've been in harm's way a few times, including the first Persian Gulf War, it wasn't until my baby son was deployed to Iraqi freedom that Mary and I felt the full weight of sacrifice. My baby, 46 years old, now Lieutenant Colonel, was off to war. And I'll bet some of you have done the same thing. Each time the phone rang, we jumped. Each time the TV showed a bomb exploding, we worried. Each time the news came on, we were glued to the TV watching the events during the first during Iraqi freedom. When days passed and we didn't hear from Strauss, we worried. For those of you here today that have lost family, I honor you. That is tough. For the veterans here today that will remember your personal sacrifices and sacrifices of your buddies, I honor you. As we watched our son, then First Lieutenant Strauss Scantlin, deploy to Iraq with the 101st Airborne Air Assault Division, we felt the pain only a family can feel, and a pain that you can only see in a mother's eye. Because of the veterans and the families we know today, and those veterans and families across this great land of ours, I get to stand before you. Serving my country was my passion. Before me today, I see heroes. And if I ask each veteran here, are you a hero? You would say, you gotta be kidding. Or I'm no hero. Not me. But I disagree. Because I would say the same thing. I am certainly no hero. But in my eyes, today, you truly are. Before me today are veterans that have brought America's honor, integrity, and the character that we always need and that's necessary to keep our country great. You bring to our country that which personifies the values that we all hold dear as Americans: duty, honor, country, perseverance, and maybe most important, the refusal of our great country to accept defeat. I'm convinced that our nation, and the threats to our nation rather, will never go away. We were always going to have threats. Then that means we're always going to have veterans. I'm also convinced that our way of life here in the United States is despised by many people, as are our values and our way of life. We have great things going here in the United States with all the stuff going on in here. All of us have to remember that freedom is not free. Thanks to all of our veterans for your sacrifice in order that we can be free. And I salute those who have gone before me, those veterans who are with us today, and those Americans who will be ready to serve when needed and when called on. And as I close, and as we prepare to honor our veterans tomorrow during Veterans Day, let me read to you a lyric that I found called "In a Mother's Eye," and it was written by a songwriter named Andrew Dean. The day our flagpole was ready, we had no flag to fly. There the flagpole stood high above our heads, and we had no flag to fly. However, my mother stepped forward and said, "I have a flag," with a tear in her eye. The mother said it was given me in honor of my son. He was a true blue soldier, a veteran who gave his best. When I heard this, I got a knot in my throat and a chill in my bones. A tear rolled down my face. For you see, in a mother's eye, you can see red, white, and blue. In a mother's eye, you can see the pain so true. Freedom comes with the cost of sadness and loss you can see in a mother's eye. When a veteran puts their life on the line so others can be free, it's a selfless act of courage and love. How thankful we all should be. And when I look at the flag today, I see a whole new meaning there. I see the men and the women who died for her, who fought and lived for her. So in this freedom, we can share. In a mother's eye, you can see red, white, and blue. In a mother's eye, you can see the pain so true. Freedom comes with the cost of sadness and loss you can see in a mother's eye. May God bless our veterans. May God bless our families. May God bless our great country, America. Thank you.
Couldn't have been better. Bill Watts, if you can make your way up here, I'd like you to help me with something. We do want to give you our certificate of appreciation, and it's appreciation far beyond thanking you for your service for 4 years. And just a little symbol of liberty. You need the bell. One more.
Very good.
Perfect. Thank you, Marshall. Thank you.